Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy's Shed Live. This is Series 16, episode number 7 for Sunday the 8th of September 2024. Hello there everybody, and how are you doing this evening? I do hope you are well. Sponsored by Crawford's Biscuits? Not. Welcome to the show. See, there's a few of you in the old chat room there already. Right, just let me get rid of that. That's it. So who have we got? Oh, Wesley's there. Evening Wesley. Christopher is there. Hi, Christopher. And Gambo is there. Oh, Neville's there as well. Gambo says he made it this week. He was working last week. And forgot it was Sunday. I kid you not, he says. Yeah, I literally don't know what day it is either, Wesley. The bank holidays never helped me, so Gambo rather. Yeah. So yeah. See, I don't know who's who, so I've got no chance of knowing what day it is, have I? But yeah, so that is all good. It's nice to see you here. Absolutely packed show this evening. I am expecting my phone to ring at some point in the show this evening. If it does, it is a call I've got to briefly take. But if it does, we will go to an intermission and then we will return sort of after it. Is that all right? Cool. Right, brill. Right, I'm just trying to get cameras working and things. An absolutely packed one tonight. We've got quite a bit to pack in. Dominic says he's having a cottage pie tonight. Yes, Dominic. I bought some of those myself this week. Shopped at Sainsbury's this week. I had Sainsbury's online shopping this week rather than Asda's because we've had some issues with Asda, shall we say. But who does online shopping out there as a matter of interest? And who do you use for your online shopping? Because all the supermarkets have got issues. Every one of them seems to have a different issue. I've not found a good one really yet. Although Sainsbury's, the young lady who came here and delivered my Sainsbury's order, she was brilliant. But Sainsbury's themselves, not so good. Right, there is all sorts on the agenda for this evening. We are going to be doing the thing with the acetone slurry and that for Wesley and for one or two others who have asked as well. So the acetone slurry thing will be coming up a little bit later in the show. But to start tonight, I wanted to start with this red phone there. You may have noticed that red phone is the right way up, because that's not the same red phone that was there last week. The red phone that was there last week, which is the one that we're building out of bits, was this one, remember? Yeah? That we're going to make into one of those phones. Yeah. I've still got to find the bits for that. I've still not found the bits out for that. I know I've got them somewhere, but it's where? No. What happened this week? I had a wander round a local antique centre this week, and there in the antique centre I found this, and it did have a tag on it that said £10 on it, so I paid the printer sum of £10 for this. Now, the reason I paid £10 for yet another 746 is A, because it's a red one, and red's a colour you can't lose with really. Everybody likes a red Trimphone, a red telephone. But also, if I remove that, you'll see there's no step there. I'll turn it around, you might be able to see it a bit better. Which means it's a Mark 1. Right? So it's a Mark 1. So would anybody like to put me a date on that as a Mark 1? Would anybody like to date it? Tell me what year they think it was made. Huh? Anyone like to have a little go at that? Well, while you're having a little think about that, and while everything is catching up, Gambo says his tea consists of mince and tatties. Well, that's quite good, Gambo. Yeah, I quite fancy that myself. Dominic says regarding the supermarket's price at Morrison's has gone way up and the club card isn't very good. Yes, it has, but it's not gone up as much as Tesco's. Neville says, I don't online shop, but next door they use Ocado and get it delivered at 6:30 AM. It's an absolute racket. I'm going to complain to Ocado, but the driver bangs about waking up the street. Neville says Ocado should be banned. Can't afford to use Ocado, they're very expensive Ocado. Dominic says that's a nice Mark 1 case. It is indeed, Dominic. I'll come back to it in a minute. I shop at Iceland, says Gambo, obviously, because he works there. That's what his day job is. And at Tesco's, as it's 6 minutes from his house. Neville says everyone around here shops online. Morrison's is the most popular. Right, Christopher's playing the dating game at 1968. Dominic's playing the dating game at 1969 to 1973. And Gambo's having a go at 67. Right. There's an interesting story here. Right, I want to cover certain things up. I bought this, and it's got one of those stickers on it to say that it's been back and refurbished, you see. So it's been refurbished as a 746F, yeah? Back sampled, after you got 73-1, so that's 1973, yeah? So this was refurbished as a 746F in 1973, thanks to the yellow sticker. Do we all agree? Yeah? Do we all agree? Neville says 1965. You're out with that, Neville, because they didn't make 746s till 1967, basically. So it was refurbished because of the yellow sticky thing in 1973. Yeah? Okay. Refurbished in 73. So what do we think about when it was actually made? Most people are going for around 68ish. Gambo's gone for 67. Dominic's gone for 69 to 73. Christopher's gone for 78. Well, bear in mind it was refurbished in 73. Do you want to change your bet, Dominic? As it was refurbished in 1973. Bills is with us. He says, hello everyone, sorry I'm late. I was warming up my tea. And Fat Hobbit's here as well. Hello, Fat Hobbit. Right, I'll give you two a chance to play this game. I have here, Bills and Fat Hobbit, purchased this week a 746 Mark 1 in red, bought from a tenner from one of my local antique centres. Yeah. Refurbished in 1973. Can you see that? Yeah, 73-1. Yeah? Got the yellow sticker. So when do you think it was made? Bill says 1974. Yeah, right. Shall I reveal when it was made? This'll get you this. So it was refurbished in 1973, and when I show you this, my next question will be, how has this got to be a thing? Right, I'm going to take the handset off a minute. So, refurbished in 1973, and I will reveal this. It is a 746F, yeah? So it's never had a lettered bezel on it, it's always been an F, according to this. DFM is the manufacturer code. And are you ready for the date? Bearing in mind it was manufactured in refurbished rather in 1973. Well, it was manufactured in 1973 as well. So, would anybody like to explain how that gets to be a thing? Because I've got absolutely no idea. If it was manufactured in 1973, how come it's also refurbished in 1973? Did somebody have it in their house for like 6 months or something, and then it went away to be refurbished? And if it was refurbished, why wasn't the case changed for a Mark II case? So, do you think that really was refurbished? What do you think happened there for it to be made in 1973, refurbished in 1973, and there was also some question about whether the Mark I case survived till 1973, wasn't there before? Well, it obviously did, from what we can see here. So what do you think? What do you think happened to this telephone for it to be made and refurbished in the same year? I just noticed it's got some weird marks on the handset that I haven't seen before. So what does everybody think happened to make it 1973? Dominic says 67, then refurb in 1973. See, it was a red herring, Dominic. You picked the wrong end. Wesley says Dennis Ferranti Meters is the DFM who made it. Dominic says it must have been a clumsy first subscriber. I guess that is possible. I guess it did get dropped and broken or something, so it immediately went back for refurbishment. Or maybe it was even broken before it was issued, so went back for refurbishment. But in 1973, what is interesting to me is that it got a red Mark I case on it in 1973. Wesley says, is the case native to the telephone though? Well, how do we tell, Wesley, is the question. I don't think there is a way of telling, as far as I know. Christopher says it might have been made in early 73 and rebuilt in late 73. Yeah, that's the only explanation I can think of, Christopher, to be honest. What's under the black label, says Gambo. Right, that's a good question. Let's have a look under the black label, shall we? Right, just bear with me one moment while I get my cameras in the right place. Right, we'll have a look under this black label. And it's one of those yellow stickers that I can't read. Can anybody on there read that? Because I can't. I'll stick the black on somewhere it's not actually covering anything up. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Apart from anything else, 1973 is very late to have a Mark I case on a phone. So I thought that was an interesting buy for a tenner. but we would have got that in 1973. Right, we will move swiftly on because we've got a lot to get in tonight. So, I was saying last week that I hadn't bought a phone for a while, wasn't it? And then one has turned up this week. Moving swiftly on. The next thing I want to talk about this week is trim phones. Are trim phones dangerous? Is the question. Now, Bill says FDR GPO factories, Cwmcarn in Wales, refurbishment. So I suppose it depends if it was made in another GPO factory. Bill thinks maybe the phone was issued to a subscriber while they were waiting for what they'd ordered, i.e. maybe a different coloured one. That's a possibility as well, Wesley. And Bill's rather, yeah. Bill says, so 06 chassis original and reused? No, they're different. The chassis are different. Christopher says he saw on eBay a few days ago a 1974 746 with a Mark 1 case. That is very late. That is very late. I wonder when they did change it, or if the different manufacturers switched over on different dates. I assume they did. I assume they switched over when they got the tooling to make the new ones, and I wouldn't have thought the tooling arrived at every factory at the same time. Bill says, I have 12 trim phones, 3 original with dial and then buttons. Cool. I'm going to tell you something about trim phones in a minute. Wesley says, no, trim phones are not dangerous, not unless they land on you when dropped off Blackpool Tower. Or, yes, or knocked off an open windowsill and things like that. Well, actually, turns out they are probably quite dangerous. At least certain ones are. Now, many people have heard the story, and most of you guys on here will have heard the story before, about the tritium tubes in trim phones that used to make them light up. Tritium is basically a radioactive gas that was in a glass tube in a trim phone, very similar to how they put neon into light tubes. And the beauty of the tritium is it doesn't need any electricity or anything to excite it. It glows on its own because it's radioactive. Now, there was a big panic when quite a few trim phones were still around, when people realised there was a radioactive tube in their phone, and lots of trim phones were destroyed, or at least the dials from them were destroyed to get rid of the tritium tubes. The thing is, the half-life of tritium, the rate at which it decays by half of its potency, is very, very short, which is why now trim phones don't glow in the dark anymore, and basically why tritium is now quite safe, the tritium tubes. Well, it always was, because it was such a low dose, it was safe anyway. But there's something else about trim phones that's come to light this week that I never knew before. And it all came about with another £10 telephone that I bought a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago now. and it's this one. Now, as you'll see, this is a push button Trimphone, but rather than being the much more desirable DTMF 12 button version, this is a 10 button version that did pulse dialing. Now, the problem with these Trimphones is, for some reason, they don't seem to work these days. I've had 2 or 3 of these that are complete failures. You know, you press a button, you maybe just get a little bit of a beep or something in the handset, if anything at all, and they don't dial. Strangely, you can dial out on it by tapping down on the hook switch. You can dial on it by doing that, but by pressing the buttons, nothing happens. So the other day, I got a spare minute. Don't tell everybody, they'll all want one. Spare minute, I had a spare minute, crikey. And I went inside it. I thought, well, is there something on the dial that's obviously wrong? So, took the top off, as you do. And let me show you now what's going on. Took the top off, as you do. There, you see. And then the dial pad lifts out, just like the dial lifts out along with the dial. But it's the button on the bottom of the dial pad is this mad circuit board. Yeah. So I was looking at this circuit board with a magnifying glass, seeing if there was anything obviously wrong, you know, a blown resistor or something like that. And I found there are a number of things on this circuit board that could be the problem. Right, we're going to hold this up here now, and if I can, alright. Right, I'm going to show you that. Alright. So, the first thing that I was suspicious of was these blue things. These. Because these are capacitors. Now, they don't look like electrolytic capacitors to me, because they're normally a sort of can shape. They're not normally a blob like that, an electrolytic capacitor. So, and it's only generally electrolytic capacitors that give problems. So I thought these capacitors should probably be okay. Although it could be them that's got something wrong with them. But then I looked at other things. There's a chip in here. Anybody who does computer repairs or anything will know microchips can go bad, and it could be that microchip that is dodgy. So yeah, that is quite possible. It could be that chip that's gone bad. But then I saw this, and I don't know if you can read what it says on that from here. Or is it that one? Is it that one? No, it's this one. Alright. is HDRM 500003. Danger, do not open. Yeah? You can see that. All something all position Mercury relay made in Belgium. Danger, do not open. So, then this circuit board is a relay full of mercury. Now, first I heard about it, in fact, not being an electronics person, I hadn't heard of a mercury relay before. I have now because I've googled them. And they're an old idea dating back to the 1930s apparently, a mercury relay. They are supposed to be very reliable in surface. And mercury, although it is poisonous, actually, if you come into contact with liquid mercury, it doesn't tend to get absorbed into your body that much, just a little bit of it, and it's got a half-life in your body of about 64 days. But if you come into contact with mercury vapor, that absorbs into your body a lot more, and these relays can explode and give off mercury vapor, pretty much like electrolytic capacitors go bad and go bang occasionally in old stuff, and you know that horrible smell that an electrolytic capacitor makes when it blows. Well, can you imagine if there was mercury in it and then you were breathing in mercury? So while everybody was actually worried about the dial Trimphones and the tritium tubes, what they should actually have been worried about was what replaced them: the push button Trimphones and the mercury in that long silver tube on the circuit board there in the back of the dial. Not sure what this one is. This is the dialer chip, but this is a mercury relay, and I'm wondering if the mercury relay is what goes bad. So I just thought I'd show you that, because it surprised me that there was something like that in a relatively recent Trimphone. So yeah. Fat Hobbit says you should be aware it's made in Belgium. Yeah. Bill says don't open it. William says change your jumper, I think have it all over you. Yeah. If it was going to come out, William, it would have come out last week. Bill says, do any other push button telephones have these? I've got no idea. No idea at the moment, but I thought, that's interesting. People have been worried about these tritium tubes that they don't need to worry about. Well, all the while, there's been these other Trimphones that have got mercury sloshing about inside them. So, I just thought that was quite an quite an interesting little little aside to tell you about. So yeah, keep an eye out for Trimphones with mercury in. But thing is, if ever you see a 10-button Trimphone like this, don't buy it, because they all go bad. The first time I noticed this problem was when I used to sell phones through the antique centre, and I got a Snowden range one, you know, with that had been recased in the fancy coloured cases, that was a 10-button, and I sold it in the antique centre, and a couple of weeks later it came back because it had stopped working, and I could not get it to work. So we're fairly certain that it's something on that circuit board that goes bad with age. But what exactly, I don't know. If anybody does know, I would be intrigued to hear your thoughts on it. But I thought I'd show you that. Thought it was interesting. Bill says the Kempton Steam Museum has mercury vapour lamps that are working. Yeah, I mean, I think until very recently there were some streetlights that were still mercury vapour. I believe mercury vapour lamps give off a very white light, not dissimilar to what the LED streetlights are now. So not easy to spot. Not like the nice orange sodium lamps that we tend to get. Right, I'm getting all tangled up in Trimphone cord now. But yeah, I thought you'd like to see that. Bill says, thanks Andy, that's interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting when I saw it. I mean, I saw it and immediately went, is it leaking? But Dominic says, some of my Pentax camera lenses have a thorium dioxide coating, which is mildly radioactive. Yeah, I wonder if Thor the dog is mildly radioactive, being it's called Thor. Yeah. Yeah, when he's done something naughty, he's called thorium. Thorium, what are you doing? Dominic says, the Manx Electric Railway substation had their original mercury arc rectifiers until fairly recently, which uses mercury vapour. Yeah, but they're sealed in a glass bulb thing, aren't they? I have seen mercury arc rectifier. I'll tell you another place that had one. East Anglia Transport Museum at Carlton Cove had one, and there was one in the substation at Weybridge at Crouch as well. But does the one at Crouch work, or did it work? I can't remember seeing it working. I have seen one working somewhere though. Christopher says vapour mercury bulbs are still made for street lights. And Gambo says, I've got a 12-button Trimphone. We'll look at that in a minute. I think, Gambo, later Trimphones, so the 12-button ones, and possibly some of the later 10-button ones, I think they had solid state relays instead of the, well, solid state switching instead of the mercury relays. I've read somewhere that they changed to a solid state switching. Bill says, Andy, you sent me a mission to look at all my button telephones. Yeah, well, I thought it would, Bills. I thought people would be interested in that because it surprised me when I realised the other day Dominic says, what's even more dangerous than a 10-button trim phone? A mercury phone. Boom, boom. It's the way you tell them. Yeah, Wesley agrees with me. He says, I don't think your phone will have the relay Gambo as it signals with DTMF. No, I don't think it will either. But it's worth a look, isn't it? So if you've got a trim phone with a keypad in, look at the circuit board on the back of the keypad, and if it's different to mine, if you've got a 10-button trim phone that's not got a mercury relay on, I would be very interested to know what it's got, because that's obviously one they've updated at some point. And does it work as well? And has anybody got one with a mercury thing on that does work still? Has anybody got a 10-button trim phone that works? No, an original 10-button trim phone that still works? Because I've got 2 or 3 and I've not got a working one. Christopher said, I've got a mercury street light with mercury vapor bulbs. Cool. Right. Okie dokie. So yeah, that's the mercury vapor phone. Anyway, I thought you'd be interested in that. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. It's moving quite quick at the moment. Wesley says, I think I've got a working one somewhere. Dig it out, Wesley, and have a look at it. I'd be interested to know if it's got that mercury relay in it, or if it's got some other solid state thing in it. My guess is if it's working one. If it's a working one and it's solid state rather than mercury, then that points to the mercury being the problem. Bill says, I don't have any 12-button trim phone, so we'll leave it to the others to discover. It's not a 12-button one, Bills, it's a 10-button one. It's one that's not got the star and the hash key. Is what we are looking for. One that's not got the star and the hash. The one with the star and the hash would be a 12-button one. Right, moving swiftly on. The thing that everybody's been waiting for, this thing that Wesley's been waiting for, the acetone slurry. Now, I'll bring everybody up to date with the acetone thing. Most British telephones that have been made sort of since the mid-60s are made out of a type of plastic called ABS. Don't ask me what it stands for, I can't remember, but it's ABS, and everybody calls it ABS. So, a bit of ABS plastic, at least I think this is ABS plastic. Previous to ABS, British phones were made out of something called Diacon, which is actually something akin to Perspex. And Diacon is a brilliant plastic. It doesn't change colour, you know. It keeps its colour, it keeps its shine, it's fairly scratch resistant. It has a nice deep shine on it. Stays the colour it was when it was made. Doesn't react with sunlight. It's brilliant. The only problem with Diacon is it's incredibly brittle. It's so brittle you might as well make whatever you're making out of plastic out of glass. It's that fragile. So from the mid-60s onwards, the GPO as it was then, later to become Telecom, Post Office and whatever, decided they were going to start making their telephones out of ABS plastic, which could stand slightly more knocks, but it can still break, but it doesn't break as easily as Diacon. And the thing about ABS is, when it breaks, like when this bit is broken behind me, this is the middle out of a dial, you see it's broken into 3. I actually bought this in one piece in a job lot of stuff, and when it arrived at me it was like that. What you can actually do is chemically using acetone, and it really is just acetone, sort of out of the pound shop actually. Here it is, this is what I get out of the pound shop. It has to be 100% pure acetone, or they actually call it 99% acetone, because I don't think they're allowed to call it 100%. But you get this acetone, and acetone will melt ABS plastic. Acetone also evaporates. So what happens basically is you paint a bit of acetone onto a piece of ABS. It melts the surface of the ABS goes sticky, you can stick things back together, and the acetone evaporates, leaving the 2 bits of ABS effectively welded together. Okay? So that's what happens. So that's one of the uses for it, and I'm going to do this now on here and just prove how it works. Just going back to the thing about trim phones being dangerous, Christopher says, not just trim phones are dangerous, World War II gas masks are dangerous too, because the filters have asbestos inside them. So the thing that's supposed to be keeping you safe from the gas makes you breathe in asbestos, does it? Right. Okay. Right, Dominic has found out the actual name for ABS. Acrylon ethyl butadiene styrene or something. Yeah, read it for yourselves. Nah, I can't pronounce it. So yeah, so if you want to stick things together, you're not using glue, all you are doing is melting the plastic. So I do it on both edges of what I'm putting together. I put an initial bit on, and then I put a bit more on, and then just stick them together like that. Then what you can do is paint over the back to try and fill in the crack a bit as well, because there's always, you know, when you stick things together, there's always a bit. Now I'm wondering if these dial plates are not actually ABS, because this does not seem to be sticking. So perhaps these are not ABS. So I wonder what they're made out of. That is not ABS, because the acetone is not making it sticky. If I paint a load of acetone on the back of that, there, see, the black is not coming off on my brush, which it would be doing. So this must be a bit of the casing that's not ABS, but the main part of the case generally is ABS. Yeah, that's not going sticky. So I've picked the wrong bit there to show you on, haven't I? Right, have I got a bit of something that is ABS? I can show you on. I haven't got a broken bit handy. No, I haven't. that's not actually what we were here to do today, anyway, because that's how you stick things together. Anyway, if that had been ABS, that would have stuck together. But there is another thing you can do with it, whereby you get a bit of ABS and you melt it down using acetone. So you put it in a glass jar. Put it in a glass jar because some of the plastic bottles will melt, depending on what plastic it's made out of. So put it in a glass jar. This is a little pot of meat jar thing, and I've melted in here some plastic. This is the light grey plastic that GPO cases are made out of. Melted it down by putting a bit of acetone in. And I did this last week, if you remember, and over the week that acetone has melted the plastic in the jar, but it's also, some of the acetone has started to, even though the lid was on the jar, some of the acetone has started to disappear again. So it's not actually a liquid, it's a kind of paste. So if you can see, get this round so you can see in it. If you see, it's like a kind of like putty that you put in your windows. Yeah, you see that? So what you can do, and if it's a bit too wet, just leave it a bit. Just leave it another day if it's a bit too wet, and it'll dry out. Or if it's a bit too dry, just put a tiny bit more acetone into it. But what you can do with this is you can build up things that are that need a bit of building up. Now I know this is Bakelite, but it's the only thing I've got that's handy that's broken, and you can see there's a chip out of that bit of Bakelite there. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to repair this Bakelite with this ABS, and all we're going to do is, you can see it drying, you see, is put a bob of it on there like that. Yeah, and people say, oh, don't get it on your fingers, the acetone, wear gloves and that. I will remind you that acetone is nail varnish remover, you know, so if it was that bad on your fingers, you know, they probably wouldn't use it as nail varnish remover. But you see, you can then mould it. You see what I'm doing there? Now, the problem I'm going to have here is, because this is not ABS that I'm sticking it to, it's a different material. It might not stick brilliantly, but so you can put it on, just like sort of using plasticine or something. Because then when you stuck it on like that, if it was onto ABS, it would be melting the thing next to it as well. So you would probably be getting somewhere. Now, if you can do is roll it into a little ball, right? See if you need a little ball of it. So what I'm going to do basically is put that on there, and then I'm going to get my acetone again. It's an empty bottle. That's the one that's actually got some in. Get my acetone again. Now, dip my brush in it and we can smooth out the surface a bit more, and you can see the grey stuff there becoming liquid again. And can you see it coming onto the brush? You see, because that definitely, that's what, how the brush is now turning grey is how it would have turned black had that other piece been ABS. But what we're trying to do here is just smooth out the surface. Chemical sanding is what they call it, and I learnt it from an American telephone restorer dealing with Western Electric phones and stuff like that. So not going to worry too much about this top edge, because we'll always be able to sand that flat. And that. But what I do want to do, I want to worry about this outer side. I want to get that fairly flat. And also on the inside, I want to see if I can flatten it out a bit too. So there you see, basically how it's going. What is happening to it. So paint across it on the inside as well, moving any excess ABS, sort of smear it across the plastic that's next to it to help join it up. And then what we'll be doing then is we just leave it. Don't forget to put the top back on your acetone, because it will evaporate really quickly if you don't. And as we leave that, over the next few hours stroke couple of days or so, that will harden. Put a little bit of ABS back into there. Yeah, that will harden. Again, and your ABS slurry, and you can see basically how hard this is. Your ABS slurry goes back in your jar, and then while it is wet, remember to get a rag and wipe it off whatever you've applied it with. And of course, to clean your screwdriver properly, you just get your acetone and stick it in your acetone. So that's how you do it. Right, that will be the call I'm expecting. I will be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. it wasn't who I thought it was supposed to be. It wasn't the call I was waiting for. It was just somebody else randomly calling me. Right. So, I thought they timed it well, right at the end of the ABS. So, that ABS now that I put on there, as that will dry over the next few hours. And to be on the safe side, give it a couple of days, and then you'll be able to sand that just like you would car body filler sort of thing. But it is just pure ABS, so if you did that on something that was, I mean, I know I've done it on something that's Bakelite, and to be honest, it probably won't stick to the Bakelite when I come to sand it, because nothing sticks to Bakelite. But had that been ABS that I'd stuck it onto, it will basically be as strong as it was when it was new. So that's what you have to do. You have to get the ABS to that sort of putty consistency. I think it was Wesley who was asking about it. So has that answered your questions about it? Going back to the trim phones, Bill says my cream trim phone with 10 buttons has exactly what you say. It doesn't say mercury, but it says danger, do not open. It says, but not as big as yours. Ah, interesting. What's the moulding mark? Says Dominic. Bill says, yes, my other two have this mercury bar, but it has two small ones opposite side of each other on the board. Well, there is another similar thing on the board of mine, on the other side of the board of mine, but I'm not sure that one's a mercury relay or if it's something else. It certainly doesn't say danger, do not open on the other one. So I was thinking that was probably just something else in a similar container, but I don't know. Yeah. Well, it says, brilliant, thanks Andy. It's for the 746T that has had a non-standard switch fitted. Does it help to prime the parent material with acetone? Help the putty to adhere? Yeah, it probably would a bit, Wesley. Just put a very light coat of acetone on. Well, actually, I said put a heavy coat of acetone on it because it evaporates in seconds. So you might have to put a couple of coats of acetone on it, sort of around the hole. I would do, and then that will make the case of the phone that you're sticking the putty bit to. It'll make the case sticky as well as the putty being sticky, so it'll like be sticky on both surfaces then. It's like putting glue on both surfaces you bring together. So yeah, that will probably help. And that, but yeah, let us know how you get on with it, Wesley, that, because it's an interesting project, that one. I'm still just tweaking this a little bit. I've just seen a bit where I should really made that a bit narrower. But yeah, so there you have it, and we will sand that down next week, and then hopefully that will be perfect again. So yeah, but interesting that these don't appear to be ABS. So what are these? And I don't think these are Diacon. So what are these made out of? If you've got a bit of acetone there, and you've got one of these, try try it. See what you think it may be made out of. Now modelers, people who do model railways and stuff, may be familiar with a product called plastic weld, for putting their plastic kits together and that. Methyl ethyl ketone or something like that is what that is, and that does a similar sort of thing. It melts the surfaces of whatever you're sticking together. What plastics that works on, I'm not sure. Would it work on Diacon? Would it work on ABS? I don't know. So yeah, answers on the proverbial postcard to that one, please. But acetone certainly works on ABS, which is what most, if not all, telephone cases for the 700 series phones produced after roughly about 1965 are made of. Pre-65 they could be Diacon, in which case the acetone won't touch it. So don't worry if you think you might be damaging a Diacon case by touching it with acetone. You won't be, it'll just evaporate and disappear. Dominic says he saw a dark grey Dial Ambassador phone the other day. Dark grey. Didn't know they did them in that colour, Dominic. And Bill says they stopped using mercury in 2000 from appliances. Says, but this is from Google, so I'm unsure on the accuracy of it. Chris has been repairing phones as well. When he says, did you get any photos of the repair, Christopher? Yeah, good question. So I'm just reading the chat again. It's moving quite quick again. Dominic says the Dial Ambassador was for sale. Not sure if it's sold now. But yeah. Right. Okie dokie. Right, that there we go. That about, I think, wraps us up for today. Yeah. Has anybody got any questions or anything before we go? Remember, if you have, you can always leave them in the forum. If you've got any photos or anything to share, you can leave them in the forum. It's here at gpotelephones.proboards.com. I had trouble accessing this forum from a different computer the other day. I was out and about and I was using a different computer to normal, and I tried to get onto this forum and couldn't. But I don't know if it was just ProBoards doing something strange at the time. So if you do have any problems getting on the forum, do let me know, because it was playing up for me the other day. But there it is anyway, gpotelephones.proboards.com. And of course the way to get in touch with us if you want to get in touch is via the website. You'll find a contact form on there, and there is the website. It's andyshed.coldpress.net. Okie dokie. That is that. Christopher says, did the 1973 746 come with a line cord? No, it didn't, Christopher. No. It hasn't got a line cord on it. That's interesting. Actually, I've not opened it up yet. I've not been inside it. Before I go, shall we open it and have a look inside it? Because it has got a bit of a weird rattle. So, yeah, we'll have a little look inside it. I'll move that. I'll put that over there a minute. Those bits I will put somewhere else. I don't know where at the minute. Yeah. Got too many bits. Yeah. Yeah, right, we'll open it up, Christopher, and have a little look at it. because I've not been inside it yet. So Dominic says, any more updates on the allotment? Not a lot actually, Dominic. I'm wondering what to do with the allotment at the moment. Wondering whether to keep it on or not, because quite simply don't have time to go there. Yeah, so I'm wondering what to do with it at the minute. Right, so here is 746. So I move that bit of clock mechanism out of the way that I'm working on there. So I've got so many projects on the bench here. That is absolutely insane. Right. Oops, what did I do there? Right, that's better. Right, so 746, of course, there's a screw in the back in here. We'll use the screwdriver that I've now wiped all the ABS slurry off of. Try and get this screw out, and the screw is not retained. It's not got the retainer on it. It's not got the little spring on it that it should have. So be careful not to lose it. Then, because the nut might be in here, that might be what is making the noise in here, and it will not come off. It just will not come off. So, as usual, got to take the finger wheel off. So get my little suckery thing. I used to do this with sellotape until I found a little rubber sucker that you have to sort of wet your finger, wet the little rubber sucker, put the rubber sucker on the middle of there and pull, and then that pulls that off like that. And the regulars all know this already. And then you take this screw out. It's in the middle of here. If you're not a regular on here, by the way, but you do happen to be watching tonight, don't be shy. Do have a little look in the chat, and the chat is on YouTube and on Facebook, whatever platform you're watching on. So if you're watching on Odyssey, which you may well be, the chat is actually on Facebook, is on YouTube. So open the chat on YouTube, but then close the actual video on YouTube, and do the video watching on Odyssey, so you don't get pestered by the adverts. But there shouldn't be any internal adverts anyway. There should only be adverts before the stream. There shouldn't be any internal ones. In fact, YouTube are putting internal ones in. Let me know, because they are being naughty. Now, the first thing that strikes me about this is the base looks new. So I'm wondering if they've put a new base on it. There's the red case. Now, there was something rolling about in here. There it is. And the thing that is rolling about is the nut. The lucky nut off the end of this screw. No, not that screw, the case screw. That's not the case, this is the case screw. So yeah. So that was lucky that I found that nut. But the thing is, that's all well and good, but you need the spring. You really do need the spring. Otherwise, you might not be able to get this out. So yeah, we'll have a look inside. Looks fairly ordinary in there. Can't see anything. It's unusual that it's a metal base and it's got the sort of textured paint on the inside as well as on the outside, that is not normally the case, so that is a bit on the unusual side. You can see where the line cord's been cut. Basically, the red was on there. This was wired up wrong by the looks of it, because the red was there, which should have been here. The blue was here, which should have been there, and the white, it was in the right place, I think. So yeah, this looks like this was wired up weird at some point. But yeah, so yeah, that looks like that was wired up a bit odd at some point. Dial, we can have a look at. Take the little clippy thing off there. That, what has happened to that? You see, something has made a big black mark in the surface of that. Which I'm hoping we'll be able to clean up. You see, this is why the numerals that are printed on the back and then overpainted with this silvery stuff, so why they're not on the front. On modern dial they're on the front, and when something like that happens it destroys the numerals. But on this we should be able to clean that up and it will be okay. It's a fairly standard looking dial in there with the period. So yeah, I think it'll be okay. It wants a bit of restoration work, but I don't think there's anything about it that will be impossible, let's say. I think we'll be all right. Now, putting this screw back in, do I put that nut on? If I do, I might not be able to get it out again. The problem is, we're getting these out, you see. If I undo this, if you screw, if you have a look very close up at this screw, you see the threads of this screw do not go all the way to the head of the screw. And the problem is, if you screw it in tight, the threads on the screw go through this bit of metal here and come out the other side. So if you screw it in too tight, you can't unscrew it, and I'll show you with it off what I mean. If I can screw that in to there, so there you see the threads. Don't know if you can see this very well, but the threads are now in that bit of metal. But if you and you can unscrew it, but if you screw it in too tightly, it goes beyond the threads, and then you can't unscrew it. You see, because no matter how much you turn it, it's gone beyond the threads. and unless the spring is there to effectively do that and pull it back to the threads as you unscrew, if there's no spring, then you can't get the screw head out as you unscrew, unless you had a very magnetic screwdriver or something. And I don't even know if these screws are magnetic. No, I don't think they are, because this screwdriver is a bit magnetic, so I don't think that screw is magnetic. It must be made out of some sort of alloy. So that is the problem that you face. If you screw that in too far. And it's a known issue, shall we say. Right, where have I put the nut now? So what I'm going to do, well, the nuts have a right way and a wrong way too. So, yeah, so I'm just not going to screw it in too tightly where I've put the nut on the back of the case there, you see. So we have to put that lip there under that bit there, drop it all back on. Make sure the dial bezel have got the cutout where the finger stop is, so it drops on, and it should all drop on. You might have to just manoeuvre that slightly, like that, and then very lightly do that up. But we will do it very lightly, like I say, we don't want to go past those threads. So yeah, done that. Where's my finger wheel gone now? What did I do with the finger wheel? Come on here. What on earth did I do with the finger wheel? Oh, it's down there. There it is. There's the finger wheel. So we now put the finger wheel back on, and will that black mark come off? I think it's marker pen. I think somebody's done it with a magic marker. It's going to be hard to get off, but I think it will come off with a bit of persuasion. We have to get that in the right place on the two little lugs, then put the screw in, making sure you've got the right screw. Now this is correct, this finger wheel has got a countersink in the middle of that, and it's a countersunk screw that I've got for it as well. If you've got a countersunk hole, do not put a flat back screw in. If you've got a flat back hole, do not put a countersunk screw in. Flat back screws and flat back holes, countersunk screws in countersunk holes. And if you follow that a bit of advice, you hopefully won't end up cracking your finger wheel when you tighten it up. But don't go crazy on the tightening it up. So there we have it, that's that. Then the what they call the opal just clips back in there. Should have a label in there, of course. And that's it. Now that dial needs work because I can feel that the clutch mechanism is not letting go, so it's hard to dial round and that, but we'll be able to fix that. So yeah, so there is the 746, the Mark 1 746, a Mark 1 red 746, which is rather nice. Do quite like that. Right, it was up here, wasn't it? I'm going to put it back up here. There it was. Okie dokie, before we go, I'm just going to have a quick look and see what folks are saying in the chat. If there's anything I've missed, by the way, while I'm doing that, because it's gone out of range on my chat, just put it in there again. Christopher says, I have my red Mark 1 746L phone in my living room as my home phone. Excellent, Christopher. Gambo says, I change my phones around to ring in the living. I change my phones around to ring in the living room. Red 746 last week. My Bakelite 330 this week. 2 weeks ago, my 332 Pyramid. Are there dates on the mic or receiver? Good question, Gamble. Let's have a... Oh, that was tight. Let's have a little look at the microphone. Well, I can read STC on the microphone, but I can't read a date on it at the moment on that. Not to say there isn't one, it might just be me that needs to get a microscope or something to it, the magnifying glass, but I can't see anything obviously on there, but it's the speaker in here more generally has a date on, and wouldn't you know it, in this case it either hasn't got one or it's rubbed off. But they're normally printed on the face there, but not on this one. 4TFWI it says on the back of it. So yeah, no clues, unfortunately. No clues. Christopher says, I found out you can buy offline red R111 line cord off of Amazon. I've got some red line cord for one of these somewhere. I don't tend to use it though, because I do mine for plug and socket, and in the UK plug and socket phones never had coloured line cords on them. Basically they were always grey when it came to plug and socket. They just made grey cords and they put them on everything when they turned them into 8 746s from 746s or whatever. They just put a standard grey cord on. William Walnut Watt says, this is very interesting info. He says, my vintage green type 310 needs a good clean. That'll be Diacon. That will, William. That'll be made of Diacon, that, most likely, if it's green. And very valuable as well. Don't drop it. Don't even knock it, because I bet it's got some chips on it somewhere, hasn't it, William? I bet it will have some like little chip, because Diacon breaks like glass. It chips like glass. You know, if you've got like a drinking glass in your cupboard and you knock it or something, and you get a little chip out the rim. Diacon breaks in the same way. It gets little chips out of it. Dominic says, are you going to wind the curly cord the other way to restore it? I might try it. The thing is, bits of it are more unwound than others, so I might try it, Dominic, but what I'll do is I'll wash it first because it's filthy, so I'll wash it and then I'll do it. William says the jade green 310 he's got, you reckon it's worth about £1,600? I wouldn't have thought it was worth that. I'd have valued it under 1,000, but I guess it probably depends where you bought it from. Yeah, 800 to 1,000 probably. I would have said similar for a red one. Christopher says, I just put an RJ11 cord on the end of a junction box. Cool. Very good. Right. Okie dokie. Right, I think we've about covered it for tonight, haven't we? We've run the gamut tonight. Last week we didn't do much of anything about telephones, did we? What was it? We ended up on about children's TV programmes and that last week. This week it's been all telephones to make up for it, so I hope that has pleased the telephonic contingent amongst you this week. And if you've got any questions or anything about anything that we've done this week, do get in touch. One thing I have found, while I've been searching for all the bits and pieces for doing this today, I've found this. Does anybody recognise what this is out of? I have a feeling it might be American, but I'm not 100% certain. But if anybody recognises this, give me a clue as to what it goes in, please. I mean, it's obviously out of a handset, but handset for what? Okie dokie. Neville says, I'm off to listen to Belinda Carlisle now. See you, folks. He has to get it in every week there, doesn't he? He has to get it. Yes, Neville, heaven really is a place on earth. Yeah. Yeah. Kids TV, says Neville, yes. Yeah. One thing I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to make some phones, some replicas of famous phones from famous TV programs. So if you know of a TV program that had a famous telephone on it, let me know, and we'll see if we can we'll see if we can replicate what was on the program. So let me know whether it's the cordless phones that were not actually phones from The Prisoner. That was a complicated one to work out, actually. I've done some research on that already. Or whether it's the golden Trimphone from the Golden Shop, or whether it's Noel's Trimphones from Swap Shop, whether it's the pink 706 clone that was originally a black one. Then yeah, let us know. William says, I love Belinda Carlisle. I have actually met her in real life. #1 fan. So have I. So have I. Chris says, I made a GPO I'll start that again, shall I? Christopher says, I made a GPO 746 from a TV show 2 years ago from Carry On Screaming. It's Harry H. Corbett's phone. Was there a 746 in Carry On Screaming? I did not know that. I will have to. I thought Carry On Screaming was too old. Oh, it might not be quite too old to have a. Yeah, it might not be too old to have a 746. They'd have been new when Carry On Screaming was made, that is for certain. Neville says, no, I'm her number one fan. You're both wrong, I'm her number one fan. And I've got the photo somewhere to prove it. Dominic says, Muppet News, Red 706. Was there a Red 706 on the desk of Muppet News? I didn't know that. I didn't know that one. Z cars. I'm going to look for the Red 706 on Muppet News now. I used to love the Muppet Show. One of my favourite programmes of all time, the Muppet Show. When Disney got hold of the Muppets, that was a very, very bad day in history, that was. Because everything Disney touches turns to shite. Star Wars, Muppets. What else have they ruined? Also Disney got hold of and ruined. Did they have something to do with Hanna-Barbera stuff as well? Did Disney end up buying Hanna-Barbera? Not sure about that. Dominic says, I've tried to recreate the red Trimphone on Sir Clive Sinclair's desk from the BBC drama Micro Men. I happen to know that wasn't a real phone, Dominic. It was rubber. That, for when he throws it through the window, it was a rubber prop. It wasn't actually a phone. Can't remember who told me that. Somebody that worked on it told me, and I can't remember who it was. But yeah, you know, when he chucks it through the window of his office, it's actually a rubber phone, so they could chuck it through multiple times, I guess. Where's it says, Carry On Screaming, H. Corbett's phone. Oh right, we were talking about two different things there, were we? It says, no, it was a really old pre-GPO wall phone. Right. I'll have to have a look at that. Not seen Carry On Screaming for years and years and years. That's the one where she sat on the shade lounge thing. She says, do you mind if I smoke? She starts emitting smoke, doesn't she? Sort of spontaneously combusts. Bill says he just bought a 710, the one with the flashing bulb. Is this a telephone that is homemade on a plan set, or is it a GPO category telephone? I believe the 710s were issued as 710s, but not with the flashy bulbs in, and there was a knockout in the case to fit the bulbs and that, because some people were issued with 710s with no buttons fitted, because they've got 4 buttons across the top as well. Some people were issued them with 4 blanking plates fitted instead of buttons when they didn't have a 746 or a 706 available. William says, not wanting to upset you guys, but I went to school with Belinda in the States and know her personally. Oh, tell her I said hi then, will you? Where it says, that's the one on the Fenella Fielding. That's was smoking in Carry On Screaming. William says, I moved to the UK 1 year ago. Oh, right. Very good. Excellent. Where did you live in the States, William? Whereabouts were you? We have people on here sometimes from different bits of the States. Whereabouts were you? Dominic says, I saw Carry On Cleo the other day. Don't think they had phones back then though. What, in sort of 1968 at Pinewood? Was it? I don't know if the Carry-Ons were the Carry-Ons made at where were the Carry-Ons made? Were they done at Pinewood, the Carry-Ons? I don't know. Or were they done at Shepperton? Don't know where they did Carry-Ons. I was feeling it might have been Pinewood. John Pertwee is in Carry On Screaming. Oh, or is that Carry On Cleo that John Pertwee's in? William says he lived in California. Yeah. With the swaying palm trees above your head, William. Yeah. What did you come here for? You lived in California, where it was warm and sunny, and Keir Starmer wasn't in charge. What on earth did you come here for? Bill says he's got a box set of Carry-Ons. Always looking for old telephones, and yes, Pinewood Studios for the Carry-Ons. Very, very cool. We like the Carry-Ons. Favourite Carry-On film? Possibly Carry On Camping, because I've heard so many stories of the set of Carry On Camping. Carry On Camping, whether in the campsite in the summer, they actually filmed it in like October and November, and they had to spray the mud green to make it look like grass. I think the Carry-Ons were done at Pinewood, of course, and Pinewood is still there. It's home of James Bond, and some of the modern Star Wars have been done at Pinewood as well. It's a bit of a shame, really, because Star Wars' spiritual home is, of course, with my buddies over at Elstree. Chris says, I bet I'm the only Australian that owns a lot of UK phones. You're certainly the only one I know of, Christopher, but there may be others. There may be others. Where he says his favourite Carry-On's Carry On at Your Convenience. Crikey, that's an old one, isn't it? Carry On Cabby, says Bills. Nobody's mentioned Carry On Up the Khyber yet. I would have thought that's a well-known one, Carry On Up the Khyber. Dominic says the later ones aren't very good, I hear, the later Carry-Ons. No. It's probably got something to do with the people at Elstree that the Carry-Ons went a bit wrong, because Elstree had its own sort of slightly risque comedy series of films that, instead of being Carry On something, were confessions of something, and there weren't as many. The one that everybody's seen of is Confessions of a Window Cleaner, but there were others as well, and they were made at Elstree, and the Carry-On sort of, they went more and more risque, shall we say, in the competition between the two, and the Carry-Ons kind of, I don't know, I think they ran out of jokes of Carry-Ons, to be quite honest. Bill says, in Carry On Abroad, Charles Hawtrey was drunk, I hear, the last one he did. Quite possibly. I think Charles Hawtrey was drunk most of the time. Didn't they, I believe, on Carry On Abroad, I believe they wrote Charles Hawtrey's character in as a drunk because they knew he would be drunk on the set, and so they didn't have to sober him up. They just wrote him in it as a drunk. Yeah. Bill says Carry On Loving is great. Don't think I've seen that one. Is that one of the later dodgy ones? Is that like Carry On Emmanuel? Yeah. And Carry On Sergeant, that was a late one as well. Christopher says, I saw a GPO 706 or a 706 clone phone in one of the Carry On films with a caravan. Yeah, that'll be Carry On Camping with the caravan in it. Yeah. Yeah, but they were classic, the Carry-Ons. The thing is, I don't think you can have a proper Carry-On film without Sid James in it. The ones that don't have Sid James in are definitely missing something, aren't they? Bill says Carry On England is the worst, in my opinion. No, it isn't. The new one, the one that they made a lot later, like 10 or 20 years later, what was it called? Carry On Columbus, and that's the worst one. I think there's only Jim Dale from the originals who did it, and it's terrible. Carry On Behind is another good one. Yeah, I can't remember what the story is of Carry On Behind. The very first one, said Dominic, had William Hartnell in it before Doctor Who. That's interesting. William Hartnell pre-Doctor Who. You learn all sorts on here, don't you, on a Sunday night? Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a sort of QI but cheaper. It's on a Sunday night, isn't it? It's the stuff that you learn. Yeah. Christopher says there was a 746 Mark 1 phone prop in the TV show The Bill. Could have been, yeah. Oh, Carry On Behind is the one with the archaeological dig, is it? Right, yeah, I have seen that one, yeah. Carry On Sergeant, says Gambo. Were there two Carry On Sergeants? Was there a black and white one, then later a colour one? Were there two? Were they in the army? Yeah, the one with Bob Monkhouse in, that's Carry On. That's the first Carry On Sergeant. But what was the one in the 70s, the colour one, that never gets on TV for reasons that will be clear to anybody who's ever seen it? Yeah, because there's some Carry On films that they can't show. Some of the later ones they just can't show. But yeah, there were some diabolical ones. Carry On Emmanuel is terrible. I think that was of the first Carry Ons before Carry On Columbus came along. I think Carry On Emmanuel was the last one they did, and it's awful. It's awful, Carry On Emmanuel. Bill says, yeah, I've only heard of the black and white one very early, then Carry On Teacher. So what was the one where they were in the army that was in colour? One of the last ones he did, sort of 1971, 72ish, something like that, it came out. Windsor Davis, Windsor Davis, lovely boy. Is essentially in the role that would have been Sid James, and essentially also probably in the role that would eventually become Sergeant Major in North Otwell, which is on again. It's on one of the Freeview channels, ain't North Otwell, and I was watching it the other day. Very funny, ain't North Otwell. Christopher says, I've been trying to get a portable antenna to work on my TV. I have to put portable antenna out on my balcony to get it to work. Yeah, portable antennas aren't very good, Christopher. I used to have one, and it never worked right. You have to sort of balance it up on things, and then you program, you watch it to fall over, and then you'd not be able to watch the rest of your program, and oh dear, yeah, or the cat or the dog would knock it off or something. Yeah, hopeless. Yeah. Gambo says there was disputes with studios making the films as some didn't have the Carry On title. Yeah, all sorts of weird things went on with film studios and TV companies and that around about that time. It was a very interesting time, and it's also interesting because the history of the TV studios and that is something that is really lost. You see, you go to America and you go to Hollywood in America. Now, Hollywood is a dump in America, as anybody who's been to California will attest to. There are some posh bits of Hollywood, but basically downtown Hollywood is a dump. You know, downtown Los Angeles, and that is, it's pretty grim, very industrial. But they do have these studios where they do cater to interested people. You know, you can pay to go and have a tour. Famously Universal, of course, where you go around on what they call the tram, and that. But in the UK, they don't seem to. They don't capitalise on the history, and there's a heck of in Boreham Wood. There's been like at least 5. Well, it depends on how you count them, but there've been at least 5 different studio complexes in Boreham Wood. So when you talk about Elstree Studios, which aren't actually in Elstree, they're all in Boreham Wood. You know, it can be 5 or 6 different places, totally unrelated places that have opened and closed at different times and that. You know, and there's 3 separate studio bases now operating in Boreham Wood. The latest one is Sky Studios, but there's BBC Elstree, which used to be the home of ATV, and is now the home of EastEnders. And across the road from BBC Elstree is my personal favourite, which is Elstree Film and Television, which is where they did the first Star Wars films, where they did the first 3 Indiana Jones films, where famously they did The Shining, and that's just an amazing place. That just reeks of history, that place. And unfortunately 3 of the stages, 7, 8 and 9, have got to be knocked down because they found this rack concrete, you know, which is a real shame because they're lovely stages and really historic. You know, a lot of stuff's been made in them, but I understand that what they are going to do is they're going to take all the concrete of the structure down and all the brickwork down, and leave the metal frame up, because they're actually metal frame buildings. They're going to leave the metal frame up and just reclad it like a modern building, so although it'll look different, it will still basically be the same shape. And I'm hoping they leave the floors in, because there's interesting stuff in the floors. Dominic said the very last Super Marionation Jerry Anderson series stars Stanley Unwin in it as a vicar. Not sure that's the last one. Not sure that's the last one. What was it called, that? It didn't last very long. I'm not sure that's the last one, because there was one a long time later called Terrorhawks, when they came back later and did a thing called Terrorhawks. But they were not marionettes in Terrorhawks, they were puppets operated from below. Almost like glove puppets, but I don't think they actually were glove puppets. I think they were animatronic on sticks, but they were operated from below, so no strings in Terrorhawks, in theory. Bill says, I remember you did some filming for Big Brother. Was this in London? It was at Elstree. It was at Elstree Film and Television, Bills. In the good old days of Big Brother, when it was in a proper studio, not some rubbishy industrial unit on an industrial estate near Wembley. It used to be, the Big Brother house used to be at Elstree Film and Television. In fact, the house was built in the concrete dish that was the floodable stage that they used for the film Moby Dick. And at one point they had a lot of rain and the Big Brother house flooded, and it exacerbated the problem by being in the floodable stage, because it was like built in this concrete dish, so the rain couldn't get away, and they had a big problem one year with a flash flood on Big Brother. They had to take the housemates out. Christopher says Carry On England was from 1976. Oh crikey, that must have been a dodgy one then. 1976. The Secret Service was a Jerry Anderson thing with Stanley Unwin as the vicar. Yeah, that was pre-Terrorhawks. Secret Service, definitely pre-Terrorhawks, that one. But there is a new Super Marionation series that I think Jerry Anderson's son's got something to do with, and they've been trying to get funding for it, and there's YouTube clips of it and that, and I've forgotten what they call it, and it does actually look quite good. Christopher says, Andy, do you have any New Zealand 746 phones? No, I don't, Christopher. I don't, no. I don't think they make it over here. I've never actually seen one in person. But Bills. Big Brother was done at Elstree Film and Television when I did it. I was in the era when Davina McCall used to present it, and you had, I did one episode of Big Brother's E-Forum, and then they changed it into a thing called Big Brother's Big Mouth for the following year, but basically it was the same programme, so we did that, and I was one of the people that made Russell Brand famous for my sins. Should that be infamous? But yeah. Good times. I used to like Elstree Film and Television. It was a very interesting place. The best bit about it, and I've got a horrible feeling this may be in one of the, maybe tacked on to one of the stages that they're going to knock down because of the right concrete, but they got a little preview cinema in Elstree Film and Television, and I went to see a movie in it once. There was this little production company that had made this movie, and it was a terrible film called The Man Inside. Absolutely terrible film, probably one of the worst films I've ever seen. so dull, so boring. But they previewed it at Elstree. They wanted people to go and have a look at it, and they did it in this preview theatre. And I can't quite remember exactly where this preview theatre was, but I've got a horrible feeling it may have been attached to one of these buildings that they're now going to knock down because of the rat concrete. I do hope it's not, because I don't want this preview theatre to be knocked down, because you went in and it was a tiny little theatre, maybe somewhere, probably seated somewhere between about 30 and 50 people, tiny theatre, or cinema screen. And you went into it, and it looked like it hadn't been touched since about 1972. You know, it was all sort of brown material on the walls and that for sound deadening, and the seats were sort of brown velour and stuff like that. Proper 1970s. You know, looked like nobody had been in there since the mid-70s. And I sat down in this theatre, and one of the guys who made this film said to me, he said, if you want to know a bit of history, he said, you're sitting in the seat that George Lucas sat in when he saw the first rushes of Star Wars. And I thought, yes, that's one to put on my CV. Yeah, I just wish I'd been watching Star Wars that day though, because the film was terrible. But it was quite nice to sit in that seat in that little theatre. So yeah, but there's little historic things. But no, I mean, you can't go on a tour of Elstree Studios. They don't let the public in. You can't go on a tour. You know, and they don't acknowledge the history of it very much at all. You know, they don't sort of save anything or keep anything for posterity. I think there was an R2D2 and a C3PO that they kept that was sat in a stairwell there for a while. But yeah, they don't acknowledge the history of it. And I went to do another thing once for a little production company. I went to do some casting actually, and this room that they'd hired for casting was like a rehearsal room upstairs in one of the buildings. And you went up these stairs, you went through this door, and there's this big room. And I remember it was a sunny day, and there was light streaming in through these windows. This big but low room, because it was upstairs. It was only the height of a normal room, but it was a big open room, and the light was streaming in through the windows. And as it came in, it was catching all the dust hanging in the air. You know, and there was all this dust glistening in the air. And very faintly in this room, because I thought, this rehearsal room must have seen quite a few famous people and that. And as I walked into the middle of this rehearsal room, I heard very faintly, da 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 da, da da da, da da da, just like it was a ghost. And it turned out it was a kid with like a portable PlayStation thing playing an Indiana Jones game downstairs. But it was quite spooky. Bill says, do they ever keep the recording of Big Brother in an archive? Yes, Bills, they do. Because the original series of Big Brother was repeated in its entirety once on Channel 4. So yeah, they do keep it now. How much they keep is interesting. I don't know the answer to that, because what they I mean, they used to have 40 or 50 odd cameras, if not more, in the house at any one time. And when Big Brother started, things were on tape. It may have been digital tape, but it was tape. Probably, I think they started on Betacam SP. I think they were pre-digital, because Big Brother was one of the last things to go from 4:3 to widescreen, because they had to change all the cameras, and there were a lot of them. But what they recorded, I don't know. I don't think they recorded the feed continuously from every camera. In the early days, I think they used to switch it all live in the gallery. So there was a gallery, you know, like any TV show has a gallery where, you know, where they sit and control all the cameras and the sound and things. And I believe the main Big Brother feed, because you used to be able to watch it live 24/7, didn't you? I believe it was all switched in that gallery live 24 hours a day. So when it was on for, like, when I was there, I think it was on for like 13 weeks or something, one of the seasons that I was there for. It was on for a long time, it was on for about 3 months. And they really did do it properly back then, you know. That gallery was operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there was somebody sat there switching the feed, and the people used to work in shifts, and there was like a 3-shift system going on it. And the live feed went out, and then they edited together the main show that was on for an hour every night, or nearly every night. But whether they only had the live feeds to edit from, or whether they had tapes from every camera that they could edit from, so they could show shots that were not in the original live feed, I don't know. If they had tapes from every camera, I imagine they probably wiped those, because if there were 80 cameras running for 13 weeks, 24 hours a day, that'd be a lot of tapes. I do know there was a big porta cabin there that was absolutely full of videotapes, because I saw inside it. I walked past it one day and the door was open, and it was absolutely full of these professional, they'd probably been Betacam videotapes. Absolutely full, a big porta cabin, you know, full-size porta cabin, floor to ceiling, with like the library shelving with videotapes on. So yeah, a lot of tape. Did they keep it all? I've got a feeling probably after it went out they didn't. I would guess they probably kept the live shows. There'll be an archive with the live shows in. There'll probably be an archive with Big Brother's Big Mouth and Big Brother's Little Brother and Big Brother's Bit on the Side and stuff like that in. But the actual source tapes, you know, the 24-hour stream, I bet they didn't keep that. Bet they didn't keep it, because there would just have been so much of it. Yeah, but it'd be fascinating to watch now. It's all gone now. It's all gone from L Street now. It looks completely different. You would never know it was there. Yeah. But yeah, the actual programs, the actual Big Brother programs, will be an archive. I would guess the Museum of Photography and Cinematography in Bradford would have a copy, because they, I think, have a copy of everything. But yeah, so some of it is definitely survived. Some of it's on YouTube. Some of it with memes on YouTube. There's a sequence called Andy's Bus off Big Brother's Big Mouth that I believe is on YouTube. Yeah, would you like me to just have a little look for you? Just bear with me a sec. will have a look and see if it's there. I know it used to be there. Oh, I can't see it. Have Channel 4 taken it down? Because somebody had uploaded it, and I bet. I'm looking, but there are some bits of Big Mouth and that on there, but I'm having a look for no, can't find it. Perhaps they've taken it down. Because they do occasionally have a purge, you know, YouTube, and take stuff down that's been uploaded by people who aren't authorised to upload it. But yeah, that's a shame if they have took it down, because I don't even think I've got a copy of it. So that's a bit of a git, isn't it? I think it was Big Brother 7 that it was on. I think it was Big Brother 7. It was a season with Ashleen on, yeah. No, looks like it's gone. Oh well, there, bummer. Right, anyway, yeah, it's been an interesting one this evening. It's also been quite a long one. It's gone 9 o'clock. Yeah, we've been on for over 2 hours. Thanks to everybody for taking part in this once again, but I think it's now time for me to go and rest the old voice and that before tomorrow morning. Actually, I've got a lot to do before tomorrow morning, but that's another story. But thanks to everybody for taking part again on here. It's been great. We will be back again. Are we on next week? Yes, I think we are on next week. Yes, I think we are. So we'll be back next week around about the same time, same place. Remember, if you like what you have seen here, you can see more in the forum at gpotelephones.proboards.com, or indeed on the website at andyshed.copress.net. And if you really like it and you want to support the channel and keep us going, then get on over to become a patron at www.patreon.com/AndysShed. But that is about a wrap from me for now. Like I say, thanks to everybody for taking part again, and we will see you around about same time, same place next week. And hopefully, is this drying? Yeah, it's definitely drying already, this. Yeah. So next week we'll clean that up and maybe put some sort of colouring on it to match it in, and hopefully that'll look like a perfect repair next week. If you don't believe me, you'll just have to watch and see, won't you? But from me, for now, have a fantastic week ahead, everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye for now. Just as the clock strikes. That clock's slow, isn't it? Bye, everybody.